Hello again, Vinyl Community, Matt here. I just want to make a quick video to talk about Geoff Emerick, who sadly passed away yesterday. Geoff, of course, was legendary in Beatles circles. He was the chief engineer for a number of their albums and worked on many of their albums before that too, most of their albums actually. And Geoff was only 72, which really in this day and age is not very old at all. I'm reading that he had a heart attack. I'm not sure if I have that correct, but yeah, very sad, especially as we lost George Martin not too long ago as well. So, but yeah, I wanted to just talk about Geoff for a little bit. Now, the first Beatles album that he worked on as chief engineer was Revolver. Now, he had worked as an assistant engineer on their albums before that, including Rubber Soul, etc. But Revolver was the first one where he was elevated, promoted to chief engineer. And in a way, I think it kind of shows not that the production values or the mixing, etc., for their previous albums was shoddy at all. But Revolver is where things really start to get innovative with what they're doing with the Beatles' voices. You know, using ADT, a lot of the weird effects like the ad and tape loops and all this sort of thing. And Geoff was a big part of that, trying to find distinctive sounds and ways to make the Beatles' voices sound kind of different or otherworldly, depending on what their requirements were. But I wanted to read a few quotes because Geoff is, or was, I sadly should say, just such a pioneer in what he did with sound. I mean, this was the 60s, especially with the Revolver. We're still really talking about the mid-60s, 1966, and the types of things that he was asked to do by the four Beatles members, and how he then had to come up with ingenious ways to solve the problems that they were asking of him. So first quote I want to read, this is from George Martin. It's in the Beatles anthology book, which is a little bit of a weighty book here, so bear with me a second. But so George Martin said, Geoff Emerick used to do things for the Beatles and be scared that the people above would find out. So he's talking about people at Abbey Road Studios, people at EMI. Engineers then weren't supposed to play about with microphones and things like that. But he used to do really weird things that were slightly illegitimate with our support and approval. So one of the things I know that he did was make the sound a lot punchier, a lot bassier, and he did that by repositioning the microphone when it came to the drums, particularly the bass drum. And yeah, he was given permission to only do that for the Beatles. He was told in no uncertain terms that you do not do this for any other artist, because of course the Beatles were not only EMI's biggest artist, but the biggest band in the world. So I guess they made an exception. Now, Geoff's favorite song, to my understanding, was from Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and it's A Day in the Life. Probably not too surprising. I know that's the favorite of a lot of Beatles fans. But Geoff was very heavily involved in crafting, well, not writing the song, but crafting the sound for the song. So I'm going to read another quote here. This is from Beatles recording sessions by Mark Lewison. All right. So, and here we're talking about things they were doing on the Sgt. Pepper album to try to manipulate the voices of the Beatles, and specifically Lennon in this case. So, direct injection, or DI for short, greatly attracted John Lennon, forever keen on shortcuts, especially if there was a chance that his vocals might somehow be changed in the process. Stories are legion at Abbey Road of John doing anything to change his voice, a most curious fixation, considering that his singing was the envy of all others, and is quite properly regarded as being among the best in all rock music. John came up to the control room one day and asked if we could possibly inject his voice directly into the console, says Geoff Emerick. George Martin replied, yes, if you go and have an operation. It means sticking a jack plug into your neck. So, you know, again, it just shows the Beatles obsession with, and Lennon in particular, doing all sorts of things with his voice, trying to create an interesting sound. And that was nowhere else was that more apparent than in A Day in the Life, actually, because that uses a lot of different techniques. I mean, it's actually two different songs spliced together to start with. The whole orchestral thing, the big E note that's hit at the end with however many pianos they had. So I'm going to read another quote here. This is from Beatles songs by William Dowding. And this is talking about A Day in the Life, Lennon's voice again. And this is a quote from Geoff Emerick. Quite a long quote, so bear with me. Lennon's voice on A Day in the Life, that was achieved with tape echo. We used to send the feed from the vocal mic into a mono tape machine. They had separate record and replay heads, so we'd be recording the vocal on the tape, taking the replay and feeding it back through the machine itself. There was a big pot, he means a potentiometer, there was a big pot on the front of the machines, and we used to turn up the record level until it started to slightly feed back on itself, and gave this sort of twittery vocal sound. Of course, John was hearing echo in his headphones as he was singing. It wasn't put on after. And he used that as a rhythmic feel for singing, That tape echo on the vocal always suited John's voice, because he had a cutting voice that used to trigger it so well. The need for a middle section of A Day in the Life became apparent. McCartney offered some lyrics that he was intending for another song. After discussion, they were accepted, as long as the connecting part was very rhythmic. George Martin suggested the connecting passages have a definite length. So, again, we're talking about his favorite song, A Day in the Life, and the sort of strange, innovative lengths they're having to go to get the desired effects, in this case like an echo effect with Lennon's vocals. And in fact, you definitely get that if you listen to the song, which unfortunately, due to copyright reasons, I can't play. But anyway, you definitely get that in A Day in the Life. It's very echoey and otherworldly almost, but I can play one song for you. It's not going to be a Beatles song, but Geoff also was chief engineer on for Manfred Mann's single Pretty Flamingo, and the copyright gods have smiled on us today because the copyright holder is actually allowing people to use that in their YouTube videos. So we're going to play Manfred Mann Pretty Flamingo, which was a big hit in the UK. I'm pretty sure it was a #1 hit, and it's a great song. It really is. It's definitely got that 60s jangly pop vibe going. And of course, Manfred Mann wound up being very successful indeed. In fact, I'm pretty sure that they still tour. I think they still put on performances. At least Manfred himself does. So, yeah, we're going to play that. And again, just wanted to say a little bit about Geoff and the quotes, just to kind of highlight how well thought of he was among the Beatles themselves, George Martin, and also how innovative he was as well, kind of really ahead of his time, with the limitations they had using the 60s equipment, the mixing decks and so on. So yeah, I just wanted to make a little short video about that. So we're going to play Manfred Mann Pretty Flamingo right now, do a needle drop on that, and yeah, thank you guys as always for watching, and until next time, bye bye.
Call her Flamingo, 'cause her hair glows like the sun, and her eyes can light the skies. When she walks, she moves so fine, like a flamingo. Crimson dress that clings so tight, she's out of reach and out of sight. When she walks by, she brightens up the neighborhood. Oh, every guy would make her his if he just could, if she just would. Some sweet day I'll make her mine, pretty flamingo. if she just would.